Thank you very much. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I would like to thank the organizer for inviting USBV to this impressive event, and I feel very honored for having the opportunity of giving the overview of the changes and challenges that the livestock and meat sectors in Europe are facing, and on the uncertainty that we will experience in the coming months. So just a short overview of what my presentation will be. I will talk about USBV, what is our organization. I will provide you some numbers on the livestock in Europe, some numbers on the livestock exports in Europe, what is the Green Deal, the farm to fork strategy, and how this project will affect the revision on animal welfare legislation. I will do a short comment on African swine fever, and at the end, just a short mention to the Meet the Facts initiative from the European Livestock Voice. So this is USBV. USBV is an organization that merges more than 50 associations in all Europe, but we also have members in third countries such as Japan, Switzerland, Ukraine, United Kingdom. And we also run the secretariat of 3 other associations, for instance, the Livestock Market Association, the Casing Industry Associations, and ship suppliers. In total, we merge over 20,000 firms and about 200,000 jobs. I will skip very quickly this slide here. So we represent livestock traders, livestock markets, meat industry, slaughterhouses, cutting plants, preparation plants, wholesale meat traders, international meat traders, and our focus is on cattle, beef, horses, horse meat, sheep and goat meat, pigs and pork. I will skip that because the time is very short. So I'm sorry for this dense slide, but I just want to call your attention. This is the numbers of the livestock in Europe, cattle livestock. So the bovine herd in Europe is about 70 million heads, where France is the first keeper, followed by Germany and Ireland. Poland and Italy and Spain are also relevant. The numbers of cattle in the European Union are decreasing, and this trend is sustained for the last 4 years. Decreases are more significant in Spain and Belgium. And these are the numbers for sheep and goat herd. The herd of small ruminants have also decreased in the last years in a continuous trend, from 65 million heads in sheep in 2011 to 60 million in 2021. The consumption of sheep and goat meat have dramatically dropped after the economic crisis in 2008, and as these are expensive meat, so the consumption of this meat has not recovered, and the trend is always to go down in terms of internal consumption. So who is the main sheep meat and goat meat producer? The main producer is Spain, followed by Romania, Greece, France, and Ireland. And for goat meat producer, the main producer is Greece, followed by Spain, Romania, and France. And just a small mention for pig meat. Europe is the second producer of pig meat in the world, behind China. So about 23 million tons per year, according to this data of FAO delivered in 2019. Spain is the main producer, followed by Germany, who has lost a significant part of their production due to the appearance of African swine fever and the market's closure. I will come back to this at the end of my presentation when I make a special mention to African swine fever. So what we export and where are we exporting? So we export more than 1 million cattle with an economic value of 1.1 billion euro. The main destination of our cattle are the Mediterranean countries, and to the Mediterranean countries we usually export by vessel, and to the countries on the Middle East and the eastern of Europe we export by road. So this is the outcome of a study performed by the French Institut de l'Élevage. The main origin of the livestock imported in the Mediterranean countries is very diverse. While in the eastern countries, such as Turkey, the animals come from Uruguay, Brazil, and other European member states, Israel's suppliers are other countries in the EU and Australia. Morocco, Algeria, Tunisia, and Libya are fully supplied by the European Union, in particular by Spain and France. But when we look into the exports to the imports of meat in these countries, we see that these countries are not supplied by the European Union. We found out that the main suppliers are India, Brazil, and other countries of South America, but the European supply is insignificant. This means that at the time of exporting meat, price has a very relevant role here. And the European Union meat would not be competitive in this area. This fact is important to keep in mind if we consider one of the possible scenarios foreseen by the European Commission, that is the ban of livestock exports. So for sheep and goat, just a short slide. The value of our sheep and goat to third countries raised to 350 million euro. Total sheep and goat exported to third countries in 2021, it was 2,700,000 heads. And the main exporters we see here, they're Romania, it's the 66% of all the heads exported, followed by Portugal and Spain. And our main destinations here are Jordan, Saudi Arabia, Israel, Libya, Gaza and Cisjordan, Lebanon, Turkey, etc. So, we had this announcement from the European Commission. This is our President, Ursula von der Leyen. She said that our goal is to reconcile the economy with our planet, to reconcile the way we produce and the way we consume with our planet, and to make it for our people. This is a very short but strong and full of significance message. What is she saying here is very, very important. So what happens when the Green Deal was announced to our community, This is the Green Deal. This is a big, big challenge in a horizontal way. It will affect all the activities in Europe. And the Commission presented it stating that the climate change and environmental degradation are an existential threat to Europe and the world. To overcome these challenges, the European Green Deal intends to transform the European Union into a modern, resource-efficient and competitive economy, ensuring no net emissions of greenhouse gases by 2050, economic growth decoupled from resource use, no person and no place will be left behind. The European Commission adopted a set of proposals to make the European Union's climate, energy, transport, taxation policies for reducing net greenhouse emissions by at least 55% by 2030 compared to the levels of 1990. So as you can imagine, in a few words, the Green Deal covers all economic areas in the European Union and will bring a deep transformation of our way of living, consuming, moving, trading, etc. The big question is, are we really ready for this change? So one of the proposals, one of the activities or one of the big projects that fit in this Green Deal is called the Farm to Fork strategy. And this farm to fork strategy is one of the main challenges for our livestock and meat sector, because one of the main objectives of the whole Green Deal is to come to sustainable food consumption. Apparently, most of the policies and speeches from the European Commission go in the direction of promoting a reduction in animal products consumption, in particular of meat. So within this Farm to Fork strategy, it covers 27 action plans, and one of the action plans foreseen in this strategy is the revision of the whole animal welfare legislation. This means from farms, animal transport, slaughter of animal, and how it will be reflected in a labeling. So a proposal will be coming in the third quarter of next year. Then if we look into the structure of our current legal framework that rules the animal welfare, so first we have to look into the functioning of the European Union Treaty. This is, let's call it, to simplify, like the Constitution of the European Union. And in its Article 13, it recognizes that animals are sentient beings. Then we have 5 directives on protection of animal farms. We have one horizontal directive. Then we have a specific directive for calves, one for pigs, laying hens, and broilers. Then we have 2 regulations, one for transport and one for slaughter. What is the difference between a regulation and a directive? Regulation has to be directly enforced in the member states, but directives have to be transposed to the national legislative framework. This means that member states have a transitional period for translating and for developing their own rules and for enforcing that. And this means that there is a big room for interpretation, and harmonization is not really possible with this. So what are we facing now in this revision of the European animal welfare legislation? So first we had the fitness check to evaluate if the current legislation really has protected the welfare of animals. So we had an inception impact assessment that includes some policy actions that it really showed us what the Commission has in mind. And then there was a consultation for citizens and stakeholders. It was amazing because up to 60,000 feedback were collected by the Commission. You can imagine 60,000 people giving their opinion on animal welfare legislation. Are the 60,000 people expert on animal welfare and on legislation? So of course this has been driven by campaigns. And the fitness check concluded in September. The main outcome is that, yes, the animal welfare legislation has improved the welfare of animals. And then in September, EFSA published some opinions on transport for different species of animals. So let's go to the inception impact assessment. This is one of the most important milestones for us. What the Commission has in mind? First, for farms, we can see here that one of the policy options is to prohibit the cages and stalls for laying hens, rabbits, blah, blah, and even sows, and individual pens for calves, to increase space allowances in farms, and to forbid mutilations, in particular in pig farms. And for slaughter, they are planning to ban the CO2 for stunning pigs. And for transport, one of the most significant policy option is the banning of export of live animals to third countries, or to switch to a specific condition such as an assurance system. So this maybe sounds familiar for you, like, because we think that the Commission wants to get inspired by the ESCA system. Other policies are the prohibition of transporting unweaned and other vulnerable animals. So very quickly, what is the fitness check conclusion? They concluded here, in a few words, that transport, the regulations have improved the level of animal welfare in Europe, but not for the cases where the specific directives are covered. For instance, for fish and for broilers and for dairy cows, sorry. And the most important thing here is that they state here that transition to more sustainable food systems cannot be envisaged without changes in food consumption patterns. This means that a reduction of the consumption of animal products is foreseen. This means that the Commission is really relying on the reduction of farming activities in Europe. And what did the EFSA, what are the findings of EFSA, and what is the EFSA opinion? So EFSA is the European Food Safety Authority, and this is the body in charge of giving opinions on science-based in a very diverse aspects that can affect the food safety, and animal welfare is included in this. So these opinions are used and are considered by the Commission before drafting legislative proposal. So, in a nutshell, what EFSA found here is that for transport of animals, more space is needed, lower temperatures, shorter journeys. There are some of the recommendations to improve the animal welfare during transport included in these scientific opinions. But in each of the scientific opinions, they recognize that the base and the science evidence is scarce and it's old, so these opinions are not really strong and are not really robust. So what is our security? How can we be sure that the new regulations will be really based on science evidence? But in parallel, we have many other elements. There was a specific committee in the European Parliament for inquiring the conditions of animal transport. This committee lasted 2 years, and in parallel with this committee, we had a very horrible event in the Mediterranean Sea with 2 vessels that left Cartagena port in Spain to Turkey. These vessels were ejected in Turkey, and these animals were in the sea for 2 months. At the end, they came back in Spain and were slaughtered in the port of Cartagena. So this was a very terrible scandal, and it was perfect for NGOs for giving a strong message to MEPs in the Parliament. We also have this European Platform for Animal Welfare. It's the 2nd mandate running now. This platform merges experts from different points of view, such as industry, NGOs, independent scientists, experts, and as member states. We have 2 representatives in the plenary. We have 1 representative in the subgroup on transport, 1 in the subgroup of slaughter, and 1 in the subgroup of pigs. And there are also other elements called European Citizen Initiative. This means that anyone can propose a European citizens initiative, And the last one that succeeded was a so-called end of cage age. That it's a very strange coincidence that this initiative was perfectly synchronized with all this process that has been running through. And this initiative, then it is included now in the inception impact assessment, as the cages can be banned in the future. So it's one of the policy options considered by the Commission. And there is another another citizen initiative running now called the End of Slaughter Age. It was launched in June, but we strongly believe that it will not succeed. And a new one called vegan meal, and the proposal wants to oblige to any organizers of any event, private or public, to provide a vegan alternative for people that are attending. And, oh yes. But one of the strongest elements that have driven our problem for transport is a judgment of the European Court of Justice delivered in 2015. This European Court of Justice states that the responsibility on the compliance of the EU rules in the regulation for transport have to be met until animals arrive in the final destination in 3rd countries. What is really happening today is a lack of transparency. When animals arrive in 3rd country, no one knows. I have to be very honest and sincere. No one knows what happens to these animals when they arrive in the 3rd country. And now, this is law, and we have to comply with this, and the European Commission has to be very strong and take it into the field. And this is why we're here, because somehow we will have to make it go, otherwise we will stop exporting livestock. Another element in parallel, we had in December last year a so-called stakeholders conference organized by the European Commission. She's the lady on the left, no, on your right, sorry. The lady on your right is Mrs. Stella Kyriakides. She is the health commissioner, and she is in charge of these. She is leading these changes. And the keynote speaker was Dr. Jane Goodall. You maybe know her because she is a very famous primatologist, and she was my hero in my youth and childhood, because maybe most of the female vets are vets because of her, because she was our hero. But I'm sorry, the Commission used her very sensitive and very emotional speech to appeal and to people sentiments and feelings, and to give a strong message against the farming in general. In this stakeholders conference, other speeches took place as well regarding transport, industry. We had representatives in that. So what's coming in the future? This is the timeline. Next year, in the second half of next year, we will have the European Commission proposal. This proposal then will go to the European Parliament. It will be voted in a committee in the first quarter of 2024. And in the second half of 2024, there will be a proposal that will be voted in the plenary session. And after the plenary, after the Parliament, it will go to the Council. The Council is the representation of the member states' governments. And then finally, it will come at the final legislative act. So what is our mission as an organization is to lobby on the European Commission to get for technical aspects and to show how it will impact our trade. What are the options that we could support, how to negotiate with the Commission. But when the proposals arrive into the European Parliament, then it's up to the member state stakeholders to lobby on their national members of the European Parliament, called MEPs. So when it arrives here, our job is to focus on what is the proposal, what are the amendments, how we need the amendments to be voted, or if they have to be rejected or supported, and even to propose new amendments. And it's a very crazy work. So, and the same thing for the Council. But normally, when it arrives in the Council, it is done. Normally, nothing changes in the Council. But it's a very last chance to lobby, and this lobby action is up to our members that are stakeholders association in member states. Okay. Just a few words for African swine fever. As you may know, sorry, in this map, I'm showing the outbreaks occurred in 2022 in Europe. The blue spots are the outbreaks in wild pigs, and the red spots are the outbreaks in farms. African swine fever virus is very different than the foot and mouth disease virus. Foot and mouth disease virus flies away in long distances with the air, but this virus is different because it's very heavy and dense. So it's really needed a direct contact between animals or between animals and contaminated material to get the transmission. So I would like to call your attention on, okay. You see this spot here, this spot here, this spot here. So how could this happen? Of course, this is a human transmission. Human is involved in this. And we can find here that probably some failures on biosecurity happened. Was this transport? What was this? So we can find this outbreak in Germany. Can you imagine the Dutch producers were very concerned for this outbreak occurred in a farm. This outbreak occurred in a farm, in an organic farm in Germany, with a double fence, with a low population of wild boars here. So apparently it happened because a truck of feed with contaminated material. The same for these cases here in Italy. It's only for wild boars in this case, probably due to truck driver that dropped some sandwich or whatever. And the situation in Romania is very concerning because the whole flock in Romania has been devastated. And the situation in Ukraine is absolutely uncertain. We understand that the Ukrainian authorities have other priorities different than reporting animal diseases to the OIE, now called WOA. Belarus never reports anything. Absolutely perfect, transparent for animal health and other issues. And the situation in Poland is very bad situation. And so the big question is who will be next? Because if these isolated outbreaks occurred randomly anywhere, so where will it be next? France, Spain, Portugal, Belgium? This is the big question. So you can see here, this is the capital city of my little country called Catalonia. And this is a group of wild pigs in the middle of the city. We have a huge problem of wild boars density in many countries of Europe. And in Spain, this is a problem. We have huge forests in Catalonia, and the density of wild boars is enormous. You can see them any day near your house. And this is, she's Shakira. She lives in Barcelona. So far, I think she will leave someday. She was attacked. She was walking around the forest and she was attacked by wild boars, and they took her backpack, and she put a very funny video in the Instagram. So, so some closing remarks. Some final reflections. The Green Deal and farm-to-form strategy and the revision of animal welfare legislation are probably the biggest challenge the livestock and meat industries in Europe are facing since the BSE crisis. Most of the ambitions of the European Commission respond to the pressure originated by citizens' perception of what is animal welfare and NGOs. So normally, without any knowledge on what are the regulations, and normally they have even stepped a farm. The impact of some policies options would be devastating for our industry. The scientific evidence and knowledge on what the new laws will be building are very scarce. We need more research and more science-based rules. And the global environment and impact of some policies options need to be deeply assessed. For instance, if we ban exports to the northern countries of Africa, is it really realistic to believe that these countries will replace those imports by the import of meat? Honestly, I think not. I think it's the case for Indonesia. Honestly, I think not. So what will happen? That they will import animals from other countries, such as Brazil, for instance, live animals, more animals, longer journeys, deepest footprint. So honestly, I believe that the Commission has not taken into account this because it's not in our backyard, but I'm sorry, we all live in the same backyard. It's this planet. And so the European Livestock Voice, it's a group of associations of different approaches on livestock, like us, like the poultry, like the breeders, so we did this initiative. It's called Meet the Facts, and it's plenty of messages to counteract the bad messages from the NGOs. So thank you very much for your attention. I'm sorry I'm running out of time. And just a few words, I'm very happy to see that the future of the livestock activity in Australia has a future because I see new generations taking over. And I'm even happier to see that this future is female. Thank you very much.